Step 11 of the recovery process invites us to transition from the external work of making amends to the internal cultivation of spiritual awareness. While previous steps often focus on cleaning the wreckage of our past, this step is about building a sustainable future through prayer and meditation. In this episode of the Recovered Podcast, we explore how to move beyond the conceptual understanding of a higher power and begin the practical daily work of improving our conscious contact. It is less about following the religious dogma and more about finding a personal quiet center where we can seek the knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. Tonight, we talk about Step 11.
The Recovered Podcast is a self-supporting community. If you're enjoying the show, we would love for you to consider becoming either a sustaining partner or an episode sponsor. Now just tap the sustaining partner link in the show notes to join the community. I'd like to recognize this week's sustaining partners, Nicole. If you'd like to become an episode sponsor, just tap the episode sponsor link in the show notes. Your support keeps us online and available to the new person in recovery. So Tina, Helen, Dana, this episode is for you. All right, let's start the show. My name is Mark, and I'll be your host. Along with me is Tony R., Dave, and Tony G. How are you people?
Doing good,
All
Mark.
right.
Thank you.
Hey. Excellent.
So listeners, pull up a couch and join us on this journey called life.
As a reminder, we at the Recovered Podcast aren't speaking on behalf of any specific 12-step community. We simply aim to share our personal experiences, strengths, and hopes within our recovery journeys. While we're open about our stories, we also value and maintain our anonymity.
So people, we're not here to talk about the podcast, but we're here to
Do it.
All right, Tony R., let's do this podcast tonight. The topic is Step 11, but first, a public service announcement. Yes, during my sabbatical, I took 6 months off, and when I came back, well, my podcast hosting company had a surprise for me. They decided to do away with my premium subscription service, and they no longer support my standalone Recovered Podcast apps. So, as a result, we've lost about 70% of our revenue stream. So we are really reliant on the episode sponsors and the sustaining partners. So thank you very much for your continued support. Now we are working on finding alternatives to providing premium subscriptions on another platform. In the meantime, all the Recovered Podcast episodes can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. There we are. But let's get back to the show. Now, the live stream. We are thrilled to announce. Now, we tried the live stream last week, and what a disaster that
How did this work out, Mark?
Not good. Not great. As a matter of fact, it stressed me out so bad, I'm still stressed out, and 6 days later. Yeah, it really, a big draw on my Wi-Fi, so it's going to require me to hardwire into my cable modem, and I'm going to do that after I move into my new house. So that's what's happening. So we are thrilled to announce that we are officially planning to launch the Recovered Podcast live stream, not now, and it's going to be on the YouTube app, but our goal is to have all the necessary hardware purchased and the platform fully configured by June 1st, allowing us to bring you a more immersive and real-time experience. This new format will feature an interactive chat room open to everyone in the Recovered Podcast Google group, providing a dedicated space to join the conversation, engage directly with you nuts, and connect with fellow fans as the show happens. Now, if you want to be part of these live discussions, make sure you sign up for our Google group today. I will be sharing the exact details on how you can join a little later in the broadcast. Now, Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. All right, Tony, working Step 11 is often described as the maintenance step that provides the spiritual fuel necessary for long-term sobriety. For many, the challenge lies in moving from the frantic energy of early recovery into the discipline of being still. We will discuss the various ways our guests incorporate meditation into their busy lives. the common distractions that hinder spiritual growth, and the profound peace that comes from surrendering the outcomes of our days. Whether you are a newcomer struggling to sit still for 5 minutes or a long timer looking to deepen your practice, this conversation offers insights into how Step 11 can transform your recovery from a state of abstinence into a vibrant spiritual way of life. All right. So first thoughts, going to go to you, to Tony R. What are your first thoughts about this topic, Step 11?
It took me a minute. Thanks, Mark. It's great to be back on the show. Thank you for inviting me.
Good to have you back.
The first year or so, it took me a while to kind of get my feet underneath me, and I was busy working the program. What this step reminds me of is that transition you spoke of is where you stop working the program and you really start living the program, where I have this little prescription card from Dr. Bob where it says, trust God, clean house, and help others. And that Step 11 is right in the middle of helping others. So for me, it's being still, going into every day with, an open mind and just trying to stay connected to the program and staying out of my head and living in my heart.
Awesome. Dave, good to see you. Welcome back to the Recovered Podcast virtual studio. It's good to see you again.
Always good.
It's good to try this again, eh? We got halfway through the episode last time. I see that Tony R. opened up with a whole new stuff this week. That's interesting. How about you, Dave? What do you got? What's the first thing comes to mind when Step 11 comes your way?
Yes, I mean, it's prayer and meditation is a great tool for expanding your relationship, but not just with your higher power, but with yourself as well, I believe, So like me, man, if you consider spirituality to be like an inside job, then it's an amazing tool to use to improve that, God voice within you, or light within you, or universal frequency, or whatever you want to call it. I think it's a good way to improve and strengthen that inner voice.
Awesome. How about you? Going to go to you, Tony from Connecticut. What comes first to mind when you talk about Step 11? What do you got?
Yeah, when I first heard this step, I thought, oh yeah, prayer, meditation. I think I understand. I do the prayer thing at church when I was a kid. I can do that. Meditate. Oh, that's like some Buddha thing. I'll have to figure that one out, but we'll get there, I guess. And then I remember hearing somebody share that prayer is simply speaking to your higher power, and meditation is listening. And at the time, I was, I burn wood for heat, not 100%, but it's a pretty good chunk of our heat. And I do a lot of splitting of wood. And I remember being out at the wood pile thinking, I'm going to put my headphones away and I'm just going to literally listen and just be present. And that was the beginning of what meditation looked like. Just doing something and being present and really being letting it all consume my brain and kind of hoping that some positive things would trickle in,
Awesome.
But, yeah.
So for me, I shared this last week, did make it to the final. I didn't make it to an episode that could be published, but I'm going to go back and talk about that. Last week I talked about, I really do believe my higher power resides in meetings. I really do believe that. So when I first came to this step, prayer, not a problem, because I've got this to-do list for God to do. God, I want you to do this, that, the other thing. I got this long list of things that I want God to do. That's my form of prayer. Not so high, not so spiritual, but something I'm very familiar with. But this idea of meditating or listening was difficult for me. How do I find the time to be quiet and still? And I'm just not. But I do believe my higher power resides in meetings. And so I made this conscious effort to be able to just stay still and quiet and listen to your stories. Because so many times I go to a meeting and I hear exactly what I'm supposed to hear. And I believe my higher power resides in these meetings. So maybe I should pay attention. And so that was my form of meditation. That was a revelation for me, is that can be my form of meditation. And that's when I am in a group of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's to be present. Stay in the present moment and listen to what it is actually being discussed. Not so worried about what I'm going to share, right? Not so much about that, but rather, what do you have to share? Because that's what I believe my higher power wants me to do, because that's how he speaks to me. So that's what I got. Tony, you talked about your first year. You're really busy. And then you talked about step 11 is really the start it's the start of living the program. So what does that mean to you? What do you mean by living the program?
Just taking the principles of the program and the traditions and applying them to every part of my life. Like initially, I thought that you guys are going to teach me how to drink responsibly and stay out of trouble. And then I realized that I have to apply these principles to every part of my life, to my work life, my family life, my personal relationship, and really start living these ideals and being of love and service being the, kind of the anchors there. It just really was refreshing how much time I got back, because I didn't have to try to control everyone and everything. It was great. I still struggle. I mean, once in a while I'll be, meet a hill that I want to die on, and I start going back to my old way of thinking, but I can start over anytime I want. And that's what these steps are for, 10, 11, 12. Sure.
This program ebbs and flows in my life. Sometimes I got it and sometimes I don't. And the irony is that the times I don't is when I'm trying to so bad, when I'm gripping really so much. And usually what I'm doing is taking my will back. Dave, you opened up about prayer and meditation. This idea of meditation is getting in contact with self. What have you discovered? So early on, when you first realized that, let's take a dive inside and pay attention to what's happening inside. What'd you learn?
Yeah, so I talked about this last week in the show that never made it or anything, but, I always think about like the three voices that I think that I have, the one that comes out of my mouth, those are words. Yeah, no problem. And I say one running around in my head. Some people say more than one, but I'm going to say one running around in my head. But I have that third voice that I just feel in my heart, in my chest, right? So that if I follow that voice, usually I'm doing the next right thing, right? So if I can do that, that 18, inch transfer from my head and everything that's going on up there down into my heart, I'm usually following a better path, a different path, I don't know. Mark, do you know about two-way prayer?
No, I don't think I do, Dave. Tell me more.
So two-way prayer, actually, I'm going back to the beginning of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? In the Axford group, okay. That they use something called two-way prayer. Bill Wilson talked about it a lot. He used it a lot, and a lot of people say this is like one of the lost tools of the 11th step. And basically what it is you set aside some time, like in the morning, 10, 15, 20 minutes, something like that, right? Maybe you read something or something, and then you figure out what you have on your mind, and you ask a specific question, and actually write down the specific question. Okay. Then look at the question like, oh, I'm going for a job interview tomorrow, and I'm afraid about it, and then meditate on that, sit in silence and just let your mind go loose, and just think about it, and when things pop into your head, write them down, and then in the end, write down a response that you feel is the response from God that you feel from the inside, and maybe start it out with, something, like my dear child, I am here with you and I'm going to be supporting you during this whole process. Please don't, blah, 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 blah. Right. So it's like kind of having a two-way prayer from your inside, your God voice within inside you. And then after you get it down, what they did at the Oxford group, then they balanced it against the four absolutes. What I wrote down, this message that I have from God, that I pulled out from my inside meditation. Does it line up with the four absolutes? Honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. So that's something that they used to do in early Alcoholics Anonymous, and it came from the Oxford group. They called it guidance or quiet time. So that's an interesting practice if you've never tried it before. To try to come up with a question or an issue or something that you feel you need direction on, and then meditate over it, and then find out what you found in your meditation and get it down on a piece of paper, like an answer from God, from your God voice within.
Oh, that's awesome. However, the skeptic in me says that's answering your own damn question.
Sometimes yes, but so another thing that they said was a lot of people would hook up with a trusted partner or spiritual advisor and go over what they came up with and maybe get some additional input as well.
Right. Discernment is always good. All right, Tony from Connecticut, you opened up with that early on. Your first form of meditation is being out in nature in that woodpile, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Early on, what'd you learn? What'd you learn at that woodpile? What was that like for you?
It was great, and I still do the similar actions where I need to, if I'm outdoors, in nature, with less tools to distract me, right? So maybe it's I don't put my earbuds in. Maybe I leave my phone a few feet away from me. It's not in my pocket, right? Maybe it's I know nobody's going to be home, so I don't get distracted by being asked to take out the garbage or whatever, or if maybe I go for a run with my dog and it's just she and I out in the woods, running around, and those things for me allow me to really. I just stop hearing the noise. I mean, it sounds kind of silly, but I stop hearing the noise of life that distracts me and gets me all wound up. It really helps kind of slowly unwind the chaos that's in my head, and allows me to see things for what they really are. And usually, it's a lot better than my original thought. Right? My boss might email me, this guy's such a jerk. Doesn't he know that? Blah blah blah, yada yada yada. But when I can just be quiet and think about that, I can say, wow, he's asking me a question. I'm so lucky I have a job. I'm so lucky that my boss asks me for my opinion. Look at all the great things that this job has provided for me. What's the answer to the question? I have an answer. These things go in, come into my head that it's amazing. If I'm in a state, though, where I'm not, that clock spring in my brain isn't wound so tight that it's about ready to snap at any minute, So, yeah.
All right, Tony, let's get into the meetings or get into the notes, I should say, get into the questions. First one's going to really focus around prayer and meditation and really kind of parsing the two. So how do you personally differentiate between prayer and meditation? And is one more effective than the other as you try to improve your conscious contact with God? What about it, Tony?
I used to put this priority on. I have to, get on my knees and pray every day, and it got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm gonna have a pre-do. I think it's called the little one shot fold down kneeler, and my brother and I had them made, and it was really cool. And then that kind of drifted, and I was praying with Karen for a while before bed. And now I wake up and I try not to move until I'm grateful. So I just start my day thinking what's good about right now. A, I woke up. B, I'm in bed, I'm warm. There's my wife. I'm in a safe place. And then meditation for me is just being quiet and watching my breath, not watching it physically, but just catching, breathing, make sure I'm breathing from my heart, and just really slowing down and noticing, and try to watch my thoughts go by instead of being, the tail wagging the dog. And that's I try to have a moving meditation mindset where no matter what I'm doing, I'm always kind of just trying to be aware of it. I'm making a coffee, I'm typing, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say before I say it, because then I can get into trouble if I start doing that. If I try to predetermine what's going to happen, then I'm setting myself up for disappointment. So I just try to be in the moment and keep my feet on the floor.
Which one would you say gets you most in contact with your higher power? Is it meditation or is it prayer?
I'd say meditation. Yeah, it keeps me more centered.
Dave, coming to you, and let's talk about distractions. So for you, Dave, what are the most significant distractions in your life that hinder your working step 11?
Yeah, it's got to be, the monkey mind, right? Where your mind just won't shut up, it just keeps on going 1,000 miles an hour, and sometimes it's like a chemical imbalance or something. I've drank too much coffee at night, or I've got something going on that's causing it, but often it's just caused by the emotional thing, right? Too much stress, too much worry, or frustrated, or resentment at something. Your ego's popping in there, or there's fear running around. But I think that in those situations, this is kind of where a meditative practice can be of the most benefit, right? Like if I meditate, especially like a meditation regimen, right? Like I'm doing it all the time. I'm doing it over and over. And I find a really simple one that's like my go-to, right? Something that I can do over and over again. And once I do it over and over again, my mind starts to rely on it. It's like jumping off the high board for the first time, right? It's scary as hell, right? Once you jump off once or twice, pretty soon you're like, dude, I think I can do a flip off this thing, and you're moving on, because you start to have faith and trust in it, So I think that once you get something that makes you feel safe, it can be a go-to when the monkey mind just won't shut up. Last week we talked about, I'm going to mention it again, this is one of the first meditations that I learned, when I came into recovery. I got sober in California. I went to a place called the Center for Spiritual Enlightenment. And one of the first meditations that they taught me there is one of the simplest ones I've ever used. And I still use it to this day, 30 some years later. And I think that meditation has a couple of factors to it. There's a physical factor to it, and there's a mental factor to it. Okay. So part of it is just your body position. So this one I just do sitting in a chair, right? And I get my backbone really straight. So I sit straight up and down, right? Because your backbone's like an antenna, it's an antenna to let things in and let things out. In fact, like if you, like car keys, like you open your car, right? If you get far enough away from your car so that your thing won't open your car, and you stand up straight and you put your little thing right underneath your chin, touch yourself, it'll use your backbone as an antenna and it'll open your car. Yeah. Okay. There you go, man.
Wait, it uses your backbone? I thought it uses your mouth.
Well, it's
my fillings.
So
on
anyway,
Mythbusters, by the way.
Let's go back then. So anyway, you sit in a chair, straight up and down, and then your hand position, like you turn your hands so that your palms are pointing up, right? Because there's a little bit difference just in that slight movement of having your hands flat on your knees or turning them over and have your palms up. It'll give you just a little bit more breathing room in your lungs. It's weird, but it is true. So then what I do is I consider this backbone. I think of it as a hollow tube of glass. And the hollow tube of glass has a ping pong ball inside of it. And when I breathe in, I breathe that ping pong ball all the way up to the base of my neck. And as I breathe out, it floats down to the base of my spine. And I breathe in and it comes up to my neck. And I breathe out and it goes down to my spine. And if I do that for like 3 minutes or sometimes 2 minutes, it'll calm me down because it's something that I trust, something that I'm very, very familiar with. And I don't know, that's one of the things that I do to calm down that monkey mind, to get myself focused. And then I can go into whatever kind of meditation I really want to.
That's a great tip. The visual there is very good for me. So I appreciate that, Dave. Coming to you, Tony, let's talk about seeking clarity. This is actually kind of a tough question as far as I'm concerned, but here it comes.
Oh, great. Thanks.
So how do you distinguish? How do you distinguish, Tony, between genuine spiritual direction in your prayer and meditation and your own self-will? So how can you discern those two? How do you go about working through that out?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? For me, is it going to benefit someone else? Is it going to benefit someone other than myself?
Yeah.
Right? And now it could be my own self-will and benefit someone else. And like, is that all that wrong? I don't know. Part of me thinks in this case, it's about harm reduction. Let's, if we could stop harming others and that's okay. That's
it
okay.
Is okay.
And,
I agree.
But I don't know. I do think I heard somebody share recently at a meeting about your self-conscience and that being, your higher power and your lower power speaking to you, through your self-conscious. Like when I was active and doing some pretty shitty things, I pretty much knew it was pretty shitty. Right? I knew it was not good, and I knew it had the potential to hurt someone else, and I wasn't being fully faithful to the people that loved me, and I was being a dirtbag. And I know now if I go do something, is this like the same old behavior that I used to have? The same old selfish, harmful, addictive type behavior? Sometimes it is. And I need to call myself on it and seek some help from some others. But I try to listen to that self-conscious as more than I used to, right? Where it used to be like, yeah, I hear you, self-conscious, but I'm fucking doing it anyways. Yeah.
That's self-will. All right, Tony, coming to you, and let's talk about this elusive state of stillness. Why don't you describe that a little bit? What is that quiet center look like for you? How do you get there? What are some of the tricks you use, Tony?
I try to be sit in a chair. Usually I'll lie on the couch, and we have 2 cats, and the one likes to be laid down with the blanket over him. So you lay on the couch, get the covers, he jumps in between, and then he's chilling. He starts to sleep, and me and naps get along well. So I get still. I don't think about anything and get my breath. And when I know that I'm doing well, I'll sleep. And this peace comes over me. And early on, this happened. I'm so grateful for this, is that after a few months, I was convinced that everything was going to be okay in recovery, that I was going to be fine, that I was protected, and that I reached the state where I could give myself some grace and I could make a mistake and not get back to that panicky, what are we going to do, and start panic, just running around trying to fix everything, or damage control, right? That's the best way to describe it, and I just could get out of my own way. And it all started when I asked for help and stopped feeling ashamed for having to ask for help. And then really just accepting myself for who I was. That got me into a place where I could have a quiet mind and an open heart. That's one of the saying, my buddy Chris, that's his mantra when he's praying or meditating.
Okay. Dave, I'd like you to expand on this a little bit, because you described that glass tube backbone of yours with the ping pong ball going up and down as a way of finding that quiet center, that place of stillness for you. How do you now, at that state, describe how you're discerning God's will versus your own self-will? What does that look like for you as you're parsing through some big question? Are you getting some direction from your higher power, or is it just me taking control? How does that process, what does that look like for you?
I talked about it earlier about that third voice, right? That God voice that I just feel in my chest. And, I'm not saying that like in the first, year of sobriety, you're going to, develop this skill to a place where you can trust your intuition, and it's not your egoic self, just, like you say, answering your own question, right? But over time, you start building this thing up, right? And I think that, what I was talking about, the two-way prayer is one way, but then there's other meditations as well that help you get out of that frantic state or whatever, right? So I think that if I'm having trouble getting quiet, like I say, use like a go-to meditation. But once I do get quiet, then there's all kinds of different other meditation practices that I can do to try to get myself in a space where, it takes time, right? But eventually you can build yourself up to a place where it's pretty amazing through prayer and meditation where you can get to, right? Like, there's another one that I use, another simple one called Isha Kriya, right? Okay. And this is just a mantra, right? So I think that one of the big things of staying into that quiet center, that peaceful place, is breath. Breath for sure, right? Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. You can even mix it up where you're breathing in slower than you're breathing out, right? Or you're breathing out slower than you're breathing in. One nostril versus the other nostril. There's all kinds of breath things. There's a whole internet out there now that wasn't there when I got sober, but you can research all this stuff. But this mantra is like, it's like in Christianity where they talk about the soul, right? So this mantra is on your breath in, is I am not this body. And on your breath out is I am not even this mind, and if I can get to the place where, my essence is outside of me, or it's inside, but outside of me. And if it's not my body and it's not my mind, if I can focus and get to myself to that place and look through what they call the third eye, just outside of myself, and I can find myself in that position, I get a whole bunch of messages that I don't get otherwise, right? And this is something that I've worked on over the years. Like, this is not something that just comes to you right away. But this is where I talked about having that, that ongoing meditative process where you start to get comfortable with it. You start building up a little bit of intuition, which builds into a little bit more intuition, which builds into even more, It's like playing the guitar, right? You pick up the guitar and it takes you a little bit, but then you learn how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, right? 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, and then eventually you feel comfortable with that. And then you move on to something different, and eventually you're playing, Stairway to Heaven a couple of years down the road without making a mistake, So maybe that's the 20th year or something like that. But, but anyway, it's similar to that, and my quiet center, it just builds up over time. My suggestion is don't get frustrated if this thing doesn't come to you right away. This is a learned process. Just like the spiritual experience in the back of the book, it talks about for most of us, this whole thing is a learned process. So anyway, that's kind of one of the things that I do for trying to maintain the peace.
All right, Tony G, let's talk about this important topic of surrendering the outcome. So another tough question coming to you, Tony G. You get them all. So can you think of an example of a situation where letting go of a desired result brought you more peace than trying to control it?
I think in general, if I can surrender the result, I will get more peace. But how exactly do you do that? Yeah. And I think, Dave touched upon it, Tony touched upon it, Mark, even you touched upon it. It's this repetition thing. Right? It's if I can do the same thing over and over, I will get better at it and it will become easier. And if I can do it in the little things, this is silly, okay? The mailman comes at like 11:30 every day. I expect the mailman to come at 11:30 every day. Okay. He is like clockwork. I have my neighbor next to me, he recently passed away. He was like 90 something. He called me several times at like noon. Have you seen the mailman yet? Have you seen the mailman yet? He got me so freaked out about the mailman coming at 11:30, I started getting freaked out about the mailman. I said, you know what? This is not my thing. I don't care about the mail. If it comes, it comes. Like, I don't get anything but junk in the mail. So whatever. But I started caring about it. But then I started turning it over that whenever the mailman gets here, the mailman gets here. Whenever my Amazon package gets here, my Amazon package gets here. I want it now. I hit the get it now button. I want it now. But if I can turn over the mailman showing up or the Amazon package coming in, if I can turn those things over, I can start to turn over bigger things about, when will my son actually start appreciating me? Like, right? When will my boss acknowledge all the hard work I've put in? Like all this.
I'll tell you when. You're at your eulogy.
Yeah, right. So, but I have to practice on the little things, and eventually the other day. So this would have been Saturday. And like when this happens to me, I'm like, my mind is just blown. So I had to, my mom passed away 2 years ago, and my brother and sister and I were right after she passed away, we went on a hike together. And then last year we went on a hike together. So this year we were going to go on a hike together again to kind of commemorate her passing. So it was this past Saturday. I also had to bring a dog that we were caring for. I had to bring it home up into New Hampshire, about 4 hours away. So I had to go on this hike with my siblings, bring the dog home, and then get home before the snowpocalypse happens, right? And my wife was like, yeah, but when are you going to leave? You got to get home late. And, she's just not burdening me with anything, just concerned that I was going to be up late. And I said, listen, it's all going to work out. I'm going to leave home at 9. I'm going to go hike with my brother and sister. I'm going to bring the dog up. My dad lives up in New Hampshire. We're going to have dinner. I'll leave there. I'll be home at 10. She said, okay, whatever. I shit you not. I pulled in my driveway. So I left my house in the morning. I drove, 500 miles round trip, delivered a dog, hiked with my brother and sister, went for coffee with them, went to dinner with my dad, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff happened. I got home at 9:59.
All right.
Right? This isn't like, pat Tony on the back. He's great at planning things. This is like I had an idea, but I surrendered it that whenever I got home, I get home. And I got home exactly when I thought I would get home. And these are the little things that I can turn over that God says, hey, Tone, you can surrender the little things and the big things. And I have to trust that God will take care of those big things. That's where the little bit of hard work is. But I start with the little things first.
Yeah, trust is a big thing, but that's all about developing that relationship so that you can have trust.
Right.
Tony, coming to you, let's review this step 11 thing. So I'm going to go over this step again. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Tony, I'd like you to reflect on this, praying only for knowledge of his will. What does that mean for you? Pretty specific there.
It is, yeah. Only for knowledge of his will. So, because I'm not God, I don't know what his will is for me. But I know that when I do the next right thing, and when I'm sober and I'm working the steps, that good things happen. So I kind of start with that, just staying in a grateful space and doing what comes naturally and not trying to force things. God's will for me, I'm not sure, but I know that it doesn't involve drinking or drugging or being dishonest.
Yeah.
Just kind of carrying this message. And yeah, I'm sober and I'm not in jail. Those are the things.
Awesome. That's God's will for all of us in this room for sure.
Just one day. That's all I got.
Progress. Yeah.
All right. Coming to you now, Dave, and I muted you before because I'm getting quite a bit of buzz off you right now. So I think we might have to get you some new chords. But coming to you, and let's talk about the other part of that step 11 step, the power to carry that out. So how do you recognize when that strength is being provided? What's that look like for you?
I think I think it's just strength that was provided. So you you just take action, right? This is all the steps are action steps, right? Even this one about, meditating, thinks like it's just sit there and do nothing. But like I talked about with the two-way prayer, when you come up with what you think is the right answer, and you may even, seek some guidance on it or whatever, then you take what you feel and you take action on it, right? You take action on it. The personal outcome things that Tony was just talking about, I can relate to that too, because that maybe has a little bit to do with it as well. I love the third step prayer, right? The third step prayer is one of the first things that taught me about this, because sometimes I'll be asking for things that seem a little bit like I'm asking for myself, right? But he talked about, and we talked about a little earlier, the qualification is this something for somebody else as well? I think the other Tony talked about it, hey, I'm getting something out of it, but somebody else is getting out of it too. Is this okay? And I love the third step prayer, right? Because the third step prayer actually taught me that I can actually ask for things if it's going to be beneficial to others, right? Mm-hmm. Like, relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Like, take away some of this ego stuff so that I can, so that I can carry on a little bit of grace. You gave me this grace, right? This gift I did nothing to deserve. You gave it to me. Let me get rid of this ego and get rid of some of this selfishness so that maybe I can pass it on to somebody else. Take away my difficulties so that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of your love, your power, and your way of life. That's like saying, take away my difficulties, but so that people can see through me, right? So that people can see through me, like Tony R talked about at the beginning, that I need to do this stuff in every part of my life, in my job life, in my home life, in my recovery life. I need to do all of this stuff, right? So I think that once you start building up this intuition and that you're heading down the right path, then the strength is there to go ahead and take action on what you're thinking, right? I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of went all the way around. I don't think I liked your question. Maybe I'm not sure.
I like the answer though. All right. Coming to you, Tony G. Let's talk to the new person in recovery, because that person is really is what the Recovered Podcast is really all about. What would you say to that new person that might be struggling around step 11?
I'd say, give it time and be open to, a new way of speaking and listening to a higher power. It doesn't have to look like it looks in a movie or a magazine or whatnot. Be open to new ideas, right? Be open to somebody talking about sitting in a different posture with a glass tube on your spine. Like, I love that thought. Honestly, if somebody said that when I first came in, I'd be like, you are crazy. Like, yeah, of course that was in California, and it was called like Living by the Sea Recovery Center or something. Like, what I needed was something a little bit more bite-sized. But now Dave says that, and I got to try it, right? I'm literally sitting in this seat saying, oh, wait a minute. When I turn with my palms up, it does change something. Holy shit. Like, so I have to remain a little bit teachable from day one all the way to day 5,400 and whatever it is, right? And I can learn something new every day from anybody. And so just, try to remain, try to be teachable, be open-minded, and try, and open minds are like parachutes. They only work when they're open, right? So, just try to have an open mind.
Coming up next.
This Week in Recovery, where we talk about what's going on at the home group and what's going on in the family room.
Don't touch that dial.
All right, Tony R., we're going into This Week in Recovery, but to our listeners, glad you're here for another edition of This Week in Recovery. Whether you're celebrating a win or navigating a challenge, we're in this together. Recovery is about so much more than what we leave behind. It's about the meaningful and beautiful life we build in its place. Your Week in Recovery, what's it looking like, Tony R.?
Oh, wrapping up the quarter or fiscal year at work. So getting that done. Snowmageddon is, I think, past us.
Yeah.
My shovel muscle is fully engaged. I went for a float over the weekend. It's one of those float tanks that's really cool. That helps me a lot. And I did try Dave's tube of glass ping pong ball, and I did fall asleep and said float tank, so it worked.
What is a float tank?
Yeah, go for it.
Don't make me Google it.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's really great. So it's this. Some places have rooms, but the one I go to has a pod. It's and it's 10 inches of Epsom salt water, and you just get in there and it float. And I turn the lights off, and there's no. You can do music or no music, and you just float there for an hour. And I meditate and go into.
You
some really
float
cool
for an
places.
hour?
Yep. It's on purpose. Yeah, it's kind of like running. It's something that you do on purpose. Yeah.
Well, this old man's bladder, that hour be a challenge, dude.
Oh, it was great. I've been going for 5 years.
I've been going like as well.
Yeah, 50 some floats. It's great. I go once a month.
It is awesome. It is
yeah,
awesome.
it is fun. Yeah.
Coming
I have a silly question. Do you have clothes on while you're doing this?
I don't. No. Nope.
Okay.
Just my birthday suit.
That poor sucker.
I have earplugs.
Follows you in.
But it is. You do shower before and after, so it is a clean environment. Yeah.
All right, enough of busting his behind. Dave T, how about your weekend recovery? What's happening, dude?
Oh man, like I'm well in. I'm third week into retirement, man. I'm like every now and then forgetting what day it is when I wake up. I like this. I have this giant list of things to do, and it seems like I'm busy all day long. And I get it done at the end of the day. I'm like, I didn't scratch one damn thing off this list. What the hell's going on here? You know. So I'm still trying to come to terms with that. You know, I've gotten a couple of calls from my work, you know, where they've asked for some additional assistance. So I've been able to do a little bit of that. So that's been good. Other than that, you know, I lost my sister recently, so been dealing with that, some family issues regarding that, and a couple of sponsees that are one of them is in Detroit, and he is getting out of a 28-day program on Thursday, so that's good. Get him back into it. I have another one that I just went and saw last Tuesday. He's in Pontiac. He's in a 1-year program. He's 2 months into his 1-year program, and has 4 months of sobriety. Just celebrated 4 months of sobriety last Wednesday.
Right.
Two of them in jail, 2 of them in the recovery facility.
It takes what it takes.
Yeah, but I'm loving working with these 2 guys. They're bringing me back to where I came from. I think sometimes it's really important to get back to where we came from, you know, to the place where, you know, you get to interact with people that are missing teeth and stuff, you know, which is you know, not too far from where I came from when somebody dragged me out of the gutter. So,
all right, awesome. How about you, Tony G? What's been going on in your neck of the woods?
I'm too busy searching for float tanks near me. No, So I was my recovery week is pretty. I pretty much do the same thing, and I have a pretty good routine where I join online meetings in the mornings, pretty much every morning. And Saturday mornings, I go in person to an in-person meeting. And tomorrow, we do have my Zoom group. We meet at 7:30 a.m. every day. Tuesdays is a speaker meeting, and I am kind of the quasi speaker seeker for that meeting. So it's somewhat interesting to kind of gather some new people try to get them from around the world. So I may hit a few of you guys up for speaking at some point. But it's always fun. I do have a sponsee who reminds me a lot of me, and which is a little. It's funny because I'll say to somebody, I'll be like this fucking guy. He says he's gonna call me. He doesn't call me, right? And then I think, and I'm like, wait a minute, that was me. Like I didn't fucking call anybody. So then I'm like, maybe
going on there.
Yeah, maybe I should reach out to him and see how he's doing, you know? How about that? How's that work, you know? And but he's doing well, and you know, I enjoy spending time with him and seeing him, and my recovery is pretty good. My wife and I started not recovery related, but like improving my life related. We we have a pretty good marriage. We've worked really hard on it because I blew it up, so now we had to put it back together. And she recently, we got this app to where every day we're each given something to do. Like basically, it's like for each other. Yep. And it's kind of fun. And so when we're done with this podcast, she and I are going in the hot tub for a while. Oh. And when it's like 8 degrees outside and it has just snowed a couple feet, it's a really good time to go out in the hot tub. So that's a little snapshot into my life.
That's awesome. All right, listeners, you've heard what we think about step 11. Now we want to hear what you think. But first, let me invite you to become a content contributor to the Recovered Podcast. Now become a part of our show prep community. By joining the Recovered Podcast Google group, you'll help shape our content through surveys, and even get the chance to call in and share your experiences. Simply email me, mark@recoveredcast.com, or click the email link in the show notes to request your invitation. And like I said earlier, after June 1st, you'll get exclusive access to our live Tuesday night recordings at 6:15 p.m. Eastern. By joining the Recovered Podcast Google group, you'll receive a weekly invitation and a link to watch us stream live on YouTube. You can jump into the chat room to interact with the co-hosts and the rest of the community as the show happens. Just email me, mark@recoveredcast.com. All right, coming to you, Tony R. We did ask our listeners this question: do you consider yourself religious? What do you think? What do you think the percentage of said, nope, I'm not religious? Tony R.
Yep. The pros are 37.
37% said no. And actually, it's a lot higher than that. 72.5% said, nope, I don't consider myself religious at all. All right, let's go. We do have phone calls coming to you, Dave. Our phone call segment is brought to you by our Recovered Podcast Sustaining Partners. Our sustaining partners are a big part in our self-supporting movement. This week, Nicole made her sustaining partner monthly donation. So thank you very much, Nicole. Now, if you have experience with Step 11, well, we would like you to call right now.
If you'd like to join the conversation and add to the content of the program, call us right now or use the voicemail button found on our website at recoveredcast.com. If you use our podcast app, just tap contact and then tap call the show and leave a message. Call 734-288-7510. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, Dave, we got Nicole coming your way. Nicole, calling. Oh, again, I have to refresh my screen, so hold on. Nicole, it's coming your way. Here we go.
Hello, all my friends on Recovered Cast. It's Nicole O calling in from the west coast of British Columbia, wishing you all a very happy and healthy new year and all the best and success in your recovery and with the show. It's so great to see you guys back online. I've so enjoyed participating and contributing as a sustaining partner, and also how much you've given to me over the years in recovery, experience, strength, and hope. And I'm hoping that you guys had made it to the convention last summer in Vancouver. It was an amazing celebration. I remember we had talked about meeting up in Detroit, and then it got postponed due to COVID. So know that I've always been listening and on the road. And I love this crew here. I was often thinking of our friends. There was a lovely gal that would call in from, I think she was South African, and she was in Australia. And if you do talk to her, just tell her that Nicole O from Canada said hello.
Yeah, Nicole, that's Bronte.
Also, Gigi and her book, 50 Ways to Worry Less, always been in my recovery library, along with all of our favorite conference-approved literature. Plus, I just got a copy of the Plain Language Big Book. Yay! What a great topic tonight, too. Oh, my sobriety date is April 25th of 2015.
There you go.
And my sponsor is Lise H. And I got sober in Ottawa, Ontario. And then I moved back out west to BC in 2018 and continued this journey. I just had some sponsee celebrate 1 year of continuous sobriety, which was a pretty amazing celebration last night. Right now, we're actually on the step 11, and it's been steps 10, 11, 12 lately in this journey of sobriety. There were so many big changes. I changed jobs. My dad got ill this year, and I was able to be there for him and be able to show up to family and find a new job. So there's been some big changes here for sure. And my higher powers really helped me spiritually clean house, physically clean house, take stock, and count those blessings this year, you know. Prayer and meditation have been huge in that process. Actually, in fact, 10, 11, 12, daily inventory. And I love what it says. You know, right after we make amends, then we get set to do a spiritual, what was it here? Step 11 of the recovery process invites us to transition from the external work of making amends to the internal cultivation of spiritual awareness. And over the years now, having a consistent prayer and meditation practice, meditation is definitely getting quiet, being mindful, trying to be in present moment. It's a clear channel, and that prayer is just the transmission line.
Okay.
I heard that 95% of my thought life is responsible for the human behavior, emotions, and decisions, too. Being able to call through meditation some of the subconscious work that's happening has been a profound awakening. Like, we go through upon awakening, and when we retire at night and doing that meditation and inviting other people into the meditation. It's been pretty profound over the years. And there's sometimes that I even either like a silent meditation, and when I'm doing that, I'm going into a space where I'm visualizing. You know, I learned this technique quite a few years ago now. And at the table sits all my beloved people, whether past or present. And they're all sitting at the table, and I go to each one of them and ask, how deep is your love? And in loving gratitude, I thank each and every single one of them. You know, same with the gratitude alphabet. That's another amazing tool in meditation. Just go through the alphabet. What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for the air that I breathe, for breathing, for cookies, so on and so on. And by the time I get to the end of the table, in the meditation or even in the gratitude prayers at the end of the alphabet, definitely grateful for Recovered Cast. And all the crew, and I hope you're doing well with so much in loving service and gratitude. We've survived everything here, everything from wildfires to avalanches, and we're part of the No Matter What Club. I love you guys dearly. Take care.
Well, thank you, Nicole. Lot said there. Thank you so much. You have a great attitude and a happy recovery voice. I loved a couple of the things you said. You know, you were talking about living in 10, 11, and 12, and you talked a little bit about, you know, that transition from the, from the inventory into the spiritual thing, you know, and the book talks about that, you know, that 10 by itself is awesome and 11 by itself is awesome. But if you mix those two together, it's, you know, an unsurmountable, you know, impact on you, you know, and you get that profound subconscious feeling that comes out of it, you know. And I like Mark talked about it when he opened up the meeting, you know, about how he gets so much of God's message through the people in the program, the people at the tables, you know. And I find that to be true too. I had a sponsee, John, and he used to say that God is love, and then I'd ask him, okay, why? You know, and he'd say, well, just, you know, a little fact, I listened to God's message through the people at the table. And I'd say, that's good. He goes, so I assume, or I conclude that we are God's love, you know, because that's kind of how it works out, you know. And I always love that. He's passed on since, but I always do love that. You also talked about, you know, like silent meditation. There's so many different kinds of meditation to experiment with, you know, and I suggest anybody to check it out. And like I said, and I have a little quote here that I wanted to work into this somehow because it's one of my favorite quotes regarding meditation. And, meditation is not easy at first, right? That's why you pick a real simple one and then just move forward with it. But it's one of the St. Francis's had a quote on it, and this rings true for me sometimes too. And he says that if the heart wanders or is distracted, bring it back to a point quite gently and replace it tenderly in its master's presence. And even if you did nothing during the whole of your hour to bring your heart back and place it once again in your master's presence, though it went away every time you brought it back, your hour would have been well employed. And I love that because I can be that way. And even if I feel like I'm getting nothing out of it, I still am getting something out of it. Anyway, missed your convention. First one that I've missed other than Detroit being COVIDed out. But thank you for the call.
All right, Tony G, we've got Ron P coming your way. Here we go.
All right.
Hey there, Mark. Recover Cast Crew. It's Ron P., alcoholic from Brandon, Mississippi.
Hey, Ron.
Calling in on the topic of Step 10.
Okay.
Continue to take personal inventory. Been wrong, promptly admitted it. And, I certainly don't do this perfectly by any means, but I do try to, watch out for, the core big ones that it mentions, which was selfishness, fear, dishonesty, and resentment. And when those crop up or I catch it, if I've harmed anyone with them, then, make amends to that person. And even if I haven't carried through or reacted and caused any harm, still just talking it through with my sponsor or with another trusted friend or sponsee or someone, just to kind of talk it through and get a different perspective, to me helps maybe prevent that from happening again, or at least next time it does happen, it won't be as intense, or it may not last as long, that sort of thing. But and I do, in the evenings I try to look back over the day too, and try to just kind of identify, was there anything big that stood out, just to tell a lie that day, or was I harboring some anger against a person. And if there is something that really stands out, then I try to take that to my higher power before going to sleep, because if I don't address it in some kind of a way, it's going to make for a restless night generally. Certainly not as good of a quality sleep as I would have without harboring the resentment. But and it's I think it tells us in the book, this is something that has to continue for a lifetime. It's not a one and done, certainly, but and I think by doing it promptly, if I tell a lie and I don't address it, or combat it with what's true, or what I believe to be true, and clean it up, then it has a way of piling up. Like one lie can lead to another lie, then we have to cover that lie with another lie, and then it can turn into just a whole big mess, damaging people all along the way, sort of like a domino effect. And whereas if I address it head on in the earlier stage, that wouldn't happen. And so that's kind of just the first thoughts that come to mind. And some things that help with it is definitely the other tools that's available in the program. Going to meetings can help things come to my conscious that I might have forgotten during the day, or not been as aware of, that it might have slipped by, because I can always slip into denial. And I think I've heard it maybe even on here, is denials don't even know I am lying, or something like that. But literature, reading, just reading a piece of literature, or listening to a podcast, doing a Zoom meeting or in-person meeting, having a conversation after I leave work, stopping in the coffee shop and meeting with a trusted friend or sponsee, or another recovering person, and through conversation, helps me remember, oh yeah, I need to take care of that. So and then of course the step 11, it really helps to bring to my consciousness things that I might have overlooked, or could let pile up. So that's I think I'll stop there. I hope everyone's having a great sober day, and thank you for all you do. Take care.
Yeah, thanks. That's some good stuff there. And tying 10 and 11 together, right? 10, we talk about, when we were wrong, promptly admitted it, kind of like a quick fourth step inventory type thing. And, then step 11, right? Tying that back in. And I encourage anybody who's not done this or doesn't do it currently. There is what's called the step 11 evening review. Right, I don't know if anybody does this. I've done it in the past with a sponsee, and a group of people, where basically they're like yes/no questions, and you can get into more detail if you want. But it's like, was I resentful? Was I selfish? Was I dishonest? Was I afraid? Do I owe an apology? Have I kept something to myself which should be discussed with another person at once? Was I kind towards all? Was I loving towards all? And what could I have done better? There's a couple others there also, but just Google like step 11 evening review questions, and there's it's in the big book, right? I mean, it's not like it's pulling this out of my behind, but what I've done in the past that helps is like copy paste, right? Copy it out of something online that's in list form, paste it in a text, and then answer the questions and send it to someone. And when I have to send it to someone, it makes me think a little bit more. Like, oh yeah, I was good. Today was a good day. Was I kind toward all? No. Right? Some people I'll get into some detail, but others I'll just say no. Anyways, it helps build on some of that self-reflection, which then I can pray and do some more meditation to have God remove all these defects of character. So it's all the steps, but that step 11 evening review is really helpful for me.
Awesome. Okay, Tony R. Chris from Chicago, I believe it is, coming your way. Here we go.
Hey everybody, it's Chris from the Chicago area.
Hey Chris.
And my sobriety abstinence date is December 24th, 2023. I say abstinence date because I'm in Overeaters Anonymous. I am not an alcoholic, and I often listen to this show because it's helped me stay abstinent and sober from the foods and behaviors that really caused me problems by offering me a wide array of different experiences. And then I glean the strength and hope from the experiences I hear shared on RecoverCast. I've been listening to this podcast for years, and I'm very grateful for all the people who share. And yes, my sponsor is abstinent as well. Thanks so much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. And congrats on the time. This program can be applied to really anything. And it's great to, I just discovered this the other day. It's like, I can't let fear get in the way of me growing and changing. And that's what my higher power helps me do every day. And I appreciate all the wisdom I hear also on the podcast. So thanks for calling in.
So remember, abandon yourself to God and admit your faults. Clear away the wreckage of the past and give freely. God bless, and see you next time.